Alright, so today I'm going to talk about my own spiritual awakening, or as some people might call it, or have heard it referred to as a Kundalini Awakening. For me, this has been a long progress. I was introduced to spirituality very early on, so in my 20s, early 20s, I started to read and discover Buddhist meditations and Buddhist practices and Buddhist understandings, which I was very much resonating with. Which have led me into the deeper studies in yoga, deeper studies in meditation, and not just deeper knowledge, but a lot of it has been my own study and my own active study, I would say, when not just informational studies, but actual my inner practice and my own personal practice of meditation and yoga specifically. There's always been this underlying feeling of something bigger and deeper to life than what I was taught when I grew up and in school, especially in Western society, which has been very disconnected for many years from its own truth. But now, 1.5 years ago, I was currently in Guatemala. I was meditating very deeply, and now looking back on this experience, it was not really, sounds very strange for some people, but it wasn't really my mind who was moving me and deciding where to go, but it was a force from somewhere else. I felt like I didn't move my own body, basically. I was kind of like moved in a direction where I needed to go and be. So I ended up in Guatemala by this beautiful lake, and if you haven't been, you need to go. It's called Lake Atitlan, which will forever be in my heart, because here I experienced the most profound understandings of myself and this universe. So yeah, I was by this lake for about 10 days meditating, doing other spiritual practices. I was doing yoga classes, I was going to kirtan and chanting, and really exploring myself in different ways. But what was regular and what was steady during this period, it was my yoga practice and my meditation practice. I spent a lot of hours meditating, which allowed me to open up. So for me, it felt like, at this point, I felt like there was slowly an inner spaciousness, inner peace, kind of, starting to well up inside of me. I came to a place inside me where I couldn't really focus on either past or future. Okay, so there wasn't any really thoughts going forward or backwards, and if there were any thoughts, I felt my whole being in deep anxiety and deep kind of inner stress. So I just had to pull myself back constantly into the present moment. And for a few days in Guatemala, during the most intense peak of my experience, I was not in past or future at all. That everything I could be was right here, right now, in the present moment. Because my body, it was basically like I could feel every cell of my body moving and tingling, and like electricity basically in my body that was moving very, very fast and upwards very, very fast. My and yeah, a lot of my cognitive functions started to change rapidly, and I would love to have seen the before and after kind of in my brain, or like, yeah, in my inner brain, just like the scientific things that happened during this time, because my sight started to expand. I saw colors extremely vivid, like very, very deep, like green and blue and all this. Also, things started to slow down. So the waves, I was by this lake meditating, and I was watching the waves. And when I was watching them, they slowly started to move very, very slowly. Like everything was moving in one breath, so to speak. So I felt like everything was moving as one, and I didn't really have to think about anything. For several days, I was not mentally planning or mentally doing anything. I was just being guided. So it is impossible to understand. It's impossible to understand through this kind of exchange. You really have to experience that state of being um, yourself. But I just knew where to be without me having to think about anything. So I ended up in exactly the right places where I had to be constantly. Um, I didn't have to, just by being extremely, extremely present. It was like my mind was like a one-pointed um, presence. Um, and yeah, this deep peace and love and bliss came out from my being. In a space like this, in this state of being, in this extreme happiness, and when you kind of detach from your mind, you understand that you're not your mind, that your mind is just conditioned information, and that you've attached yourself to as your identity. Um, and when this is realized, it's like I can only explain it as peace. It's a deep peace, and there's a knowing that you're always in the right place at the right time for this, for your soul's purpose of evolution and awareness. Okay, um, and there's nothing that is random. This universe is not random at all, but our mind believes so, because this is the main illusion of uh, of our human mind, that we experience life through these eyes, and it seems like everything is separate from us. And after these intense days and even weeks of extreme internal presence, internal movement, it's like I it slowly started to slowly kind of dilute itself. So from this big explosion, kind of like a almost, if you have tried any psychedelic drugs, it was kind of like taking something which I didn't, so only through meditation and spiritual practices like yoga. Um, it was like my consciousness and my psyche opened up, so I could feel and experience everything at the same time. I could feel the kind of the heartbeat of the universe. And slowly, gently, this experience started to die out, but it kept itself in me. So for several months, I mean 6, even 7, 8 months, and to this day there is still this inner peace in me. Not as strong as at this day and at this time when everything was happening, but there's an inner presence that is still, that I can still reside in after this. Um, and it's beautiful. It's truly beautiful. I am every day thanking universe for that experience and for being able to go through that. There were moments of intense fear as well, for sure. I was wondering where I was going. I mean, I almost felt like I was kind of disappearing, like like I was just like my borders of my body was kind of like um, expanding out. There wasn't much like uh, like I like I didn't finish here with my skin, but that I'm actually like outside and I'm around everything, and you understand that you are everything, and that everything is you, and that this universe is just a very intense cosmic play. Um, you realize that the separation of our mind, that kind of illusion that everything is separate, on this kind of level of consciousness, that we can all experience very high level of consciousness, and when we do, we kind of integrate that experience in our body. We kind of feel this wholeness. We feel the wholeness of the universe, and then that resides in us, and like an imprint. And the most of the suffering in this world comes from that misunderstanding, that that we've been moving with our mind so much, and which is beautiful, and this is the beautiful part as well of being a human being, that we can think and we can analyze and we can understand things, but it's not all. And when we just use our mind without tapping into our body and our intuition, we're constantly coming from an angle of separation. But yeah, a spiritual awakening is kind of, if I should put it into a few words, it's an explosion in your human psyche. It's an internal explosion, and that's the only kind of word I can describe it as. It's all of your all of the illusions and your mind's attachments are kind of like falling apart, and something much bigger is taking over your experience, and you can kind of lean back and allow everything to happen as it is, without having to create aversion or anything towards it. Thank you very much for listening so far to this raveling, confusing mind. No, it's not confusing at all, it's just hard to put the experiences into words, because there are not really enough words or vocabulary to fully explain this. Um, but yeah, know that you are exactly where you need to be right now. Know that your life is a journey. That everything you are um, is universe itself becoming more aware. Okay, expanding, evolving through you, creating through you. And know that you are deeply loved, deeply, deeply loved. Not just by universe itself, but by nature, by spirits, by all of existence really is holding you and trying to move you in the direction you need to be and go. But what is holding you back is yourself, is your own mind, is the attachments to your thoughts. So by slowly starting to understand that there's a deeper meaning to why you're here, working towards that, and also allowing new information to enter you and digest inside of you, is important. Not just allowing the former separation to take you over, but listen as well to other places of information and other paths of understanding is necessary for you to, and for all of us to come back to ourselves and the wholeness that already exists inside of us, behind all the shutter of the mind. So yeah, much love on all your journeys, and see you soon. Namaste.